Tony!
I'm burying you.
I'm alive, man! I'm alive!
You're waking the neighbors! Shut up!
What is up, Gorilla Nation, and welcome your butts back to a brand new edition and a brand new episode of The Division 2. But first, if you would be so kind, please smash that like button, ground and pound that subscription button, and then reach up there, trigger the bell, and turn on post notifications so that way you know each and every time a video is uploaded or a stream goes live. I dubbed this build the Liliana, and before we hop into it, I'm going to demonstrate it first. So what you want to do is come over here and, of course, damage yourself. And either by way of bullets, such as this. Once my stick stops sticking to the left, and my dude automatically goes left. As you can see, my armor bar is going up. Now, that's only indicative of the proximity of those cardboard targets. And I stood here repeatedly, and I mean repeatedly, and my good friend Soul Killer was here to witness this, and trying to get those cardboard targets to all stand up on the front row, or at least majority of them on the first two rows. And you're probably wondering, well, why do you want those in the first two rows? Why does it matter? Well, it's indicative and has a direct effect on the chest piece that I'm actually currently using on this build. So instead of sitting here cycling through this over and over and over, I actually did record some footage of what and the effects of having these four cardboard targets, and even like, you know, one or two behind it actually all up at the same time, instead of having to deal with only those behind to pop up. So here's the footage. But it's on easy though, so I have to tread easy. Bam! Within 3 seconds, back to full armor.
That's awesome.
3 bullets. So yeah, you're not affecting whatsoever. See, you can come in now.
Okay.
Come in. See, I'll show you. No armor. See how those four are lined up?
Yep. I see no armor. Wow. Instant armor. What the? Oh, wow. Yeah.
And let's
I need
say
to go
with
hunting for a True Patriot chest piece, and I need a backpack.
With your seeker idea.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Now that you've seen the footage, you've noticed I went over there and damaged myself, just as I did before. And you'll notice that the armor value in which I got back in return, the repair of my armor was much more prominent and much more vast and respective values as far as the big large lump sums and how quick. I think it took like 2 seconds for me to be back at full armor just for dinging an NPC once or twice, or using such things like a hive or a seeker mine and to inflict bleed damage. And that has a direct effect and correlation with the chest piece talent that I'm using, Ridgeway's Pride. And as far as when it comes to those targets and the proximity I am to them, as you can see, as the talent, the bleeding edge, shooting enemies within 15 meters applies a bleed to the target. Now, shooting them within 15 meters cause them bleed, but they can be beyond that scope, and you can still cause them bleed by way of hives or seeker mine. But here's the kicker. Repair 3 to 48% of your armor per second for every enemy that is bleeding within that 15 meters. So, for instance, these first 2 rows of the cardboard dummies are within that 15-meter range. Anything beyond that is outside of that 15 meters. So, therefore, even though they'll be bleeding, I'm not getting any kind of armor repair or stacks off them for them bleeding, for the simple fact they're beyond that scope of 15 meters. So thus why I switched over to that gameplay. Now I went with the Creeping Death, so that way instead of, for instance, if you use a backpack without Creeping Death, so to speak, then you have to shoot each individual target that's within that 15-meter range, and as you can see, these are not, but this one is, because it's in those first 2 rows, and anything beyond that is outside of it. So if these cardboards were up in the second row, then you still have to shoot each individual target to apply that bleed status effect. But by utilizing Creeping Death on here, then you're able to be much more effective and only having to shoot one enemy to apply it to them all. And see, putting that bleed effect on them is not handcuffed or tied to that 15 meters when it comes to Creeping Death. The return value for the armor repair is indicative and tied to that 15-meter range between you and NPCs. And as you can see, it's a Petrov. It's not by far min-maxed. I just actually came across of it, put Creeping Death on it. Creeping Death is when you apply a status effect, it also applied to all enemies within 8 meters of your target. So anything within 8 meters of said target that you applied bleed or any status effect to will also be applied to that status effect, will be applied to those NPCs as well. Now, some would be like, well, wouldn't you get more damage from using Wicked here? Yes, you would, but predominantly, if you are a PvE player, then, you know, there's more frequent occasions when there's multiple NPCs that surround you, they crowd you, they rush you, so it would benefit you more, in my opinion, to use the Creeping Death over the Wicked. Now, for PvP, you would want to go Wicked for that additional damage bonus because you're predominantly facing, you know, 1, possibly 2 opponents at the same time, so therefore it's much easier just to get those 1 or 2, but you're only getting the return value from 2 targets of 6% armor regen versus, you know, as it goes up from 3 targets, it jumps to 12%, 4 targets 24%, and then 5 targets 48%. So, keeping with those values, that's why it synergizes better with Creeping Death in PvE over the likes of Wicked. Now, I went with RPK. I actually crafted it, going to min-max it. Went with Sadist, deal 20% weapon damage to bleeding enemies. After 4 kills, applies bleed to the next enemy you hit. And of course, the blue screen, just for those additional status effects, since I am using Creeping Death, and by pulsing them, disrupting them, and disorienting the NPCs as well. So accompany that with the chest piece of Ridgeways, and you can add bleed to that status effect too, and hitting them basically and essentially all at once simultaneously. The only thing you have to do with the blue screen is just activate a skill after you have those targets marked, like so, because when you mark the targets, see, it puts up that little icon, and each one that you mark will have that, and then essentially you just pop a skill, and as you can see, they are under a status effect just for simply using said skill. So, but I had the Seeker Mind on here because it promotes bleed if it lands on target, so therefore also proccing Creeping Death. Likewise, you can use a Bleeder Hive to do the same thing, and NPCs that are within that hive spread to other enemies within that 8 meters, and as long as you're within 15 meters of those said NPCs, then you're going to get the benefit of the armor repair also with Ridgeways. Now, I paired everything with crit chance and crit damage, but you as the user, and according to your personal preferences, I am using LMG, so I went with One Piece Petrov, and I chose it over the gloves because I wanted to utilize Creeping Death, which only comes on a backpack. Now, when it comes to these values, you're probably asking, well, Relentless, wouldn't you benefit more from putting status effect in the attribute slots more than what you would do crit chance or crit damage. And you just have to ask yourself as an individual and according to your playstyle, do you want more damage up front or do you want more damage at the back end? And what I mean by that is by going crit chance and crit damage, then my initial bullets are stronger and not having to wait for the bonuses from all that status effect stacked on as far as duration and the bleed, which over duration causes more damage, thus the back end side of things. So I can either inflict it up front and get it done and out of the way, and then stack on that little bit of bleed damage alongside of it, or I can drop my base damage of my bullets by removing crit chance and crit damage from everything, and then just leaving it up to a stronger duration and damage over time bleed and receive that damage on the back end. So I leave it up to you all to decide whether you want it on the upfront or the back end. Now, when it comes to skills, usually, I mean, if you have a problem dying like I do, then of course you want to run a reviver hive. So the second option would be the seeker because it does inflict bleed as well. So that way, you know, if you're in cover and, you know, you're getting focused, you don't want to, you know, stand up and start shooting. You can just drop this. And of course, sometimes the NPCs die by the way, but predominantly the blast radius will still cause that bleed and thus in turn proc creeping death and, you know, rinse and repeat. But if you don't need a reviver hive, then you can go with like a seeker and a hive at the same time. So that way you have two things besides your weaponry that's going to inflict bleed in order to proc your armor repair and the creeping death. And of course, if you have sadist on your weaponry, then that's going to give you the damage output as well. And like I said, in PvP, you would want to more or less go with the wicked variety because you won't be facing that many opponents in the dark zone all at once. So that way you predominantly want to focus and finish off one before you start attacking and trying or defending yourself against the second onslaught. So therefore you want that damage up front by stacking Wicked and getting that damage from it along with Sadist because it is stronger that way. But predominantly you're only facing one, possibly two people, you know, at a time versus NPCs where you're swarmed by multiple 4 or 5 and sometimes even more than that, depending on, you know, the mode that you're in and actually what mission or stronghold or raid or even countdown that you're in, especially when it comes to the extraction at the end of countdown. You know, you can proc Wicked, be within that 15 meters, and, you know, just constantly get that heal because it's that amount of heal per second. So you're not getting 48% over the duration of those per second. As it states, you receive 3 to 48% of your armor per second. So if you have 5 on bleed and let's say a couple escape, you know, the creeping death aspect of it and are firing on you, then you're regenerating your armor while taking damage and simultaneously dishing out the damage at the same time. So it's like you're your own healer. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you do try it out. And like I said, PvP, you will want to go Wicked here, whether you want the damage on the front end or the back end. I leave it up to you to decide according to your playstyle and your personal preference, whether you stack crit chance and crit damage, or run status effect on every individual piece. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Appreciate all the love and support, and we'll see you guys and gals later. God bless.